Summer Solstice TLC Open Mic, June 20th. Join me and my internet friends, that's you, for an evening of sharing and self-expression. Okay? It'll be live from my driftwood fort on the sandy beach of the Cosmic Navel, aka the Earth Dome that I built in my backyard. Okay, this is real. Bring something to share from your heart. A poem, a song, interpretive scarf dancing. Okay, this is a safe space. Whatever it is, you'll have up to 5 minutes to express yourself on this groundless ground. And all you have to do is just click the link to sign up and we'll put you on the list. One other thing, we will be accepting pre-recorded submissions, but we're going to prioritize persons who show up in the flesh, in this fleshless flesh. Okay? I can't wait to be with you. By and by. I crack myself up watching myself. Welcome to the Rigel Show. We're coming at you live from my Earth Dome, also known as my mystical driftwood fort on the sandy beach of the Cosmic Navel, where song runs through all of reality. Did you know that? On to the vision casting part of the show. Feel free to click the link, by the way, and join me in here. This space is a playful Theotokian riparian zone that seeks to integrate traditional values, modern values, progressive postmodern values. Yes, we care about you too. And that which is emerging on the horizon of the evolution of culture and consciousness. I call that postmodern values. And I'm not kidding. It's a place where, as some say, we sell Christmas cards door to door year round, where we prioritize precision over accuracy. Okay, thank you, Luke Thompson, for just clarifying that for us. We also notice the spirit breaking through in the form of goosebumps, also known as piloerection. Okay? Thank you, Sherry, for introducing me to that beautiful term. Piloerection is the technical term for goosebumps. And I'm thinking about maybe just doing a one-to-one replacement on that for the rest of my life, because I have a thing for family-friendly potty humor, and that is right down the middle of the fairway. So we notice piloerection in this safe space, okay? This is also a space where we hold positive polarities together in perichoretic dance, part and whole, head and heart, eyes and ears. Have you ever noticed how eyes are unidirectional and ears are omnidirectional, yet the two synthesize in this beautiful meaning-making apparatus of our mind? Yeah. So that's basically the vision casting part of the show. And today I'm going to enter the Cosmic Navel once again by sharing a track off of my album called Consciousness, which I wrote and recorded in like 2020, I think, and never really released it because the time just wasn't right. But I feel like the time is right. And basically, this album is a visual and audible interpretation of a theory of kind of reality, of consciousness, of evolution. And it's kind of like a meta theory. It's a theory of theories. And the basic idea is that culture and consciousness evolve, co-evolve. And it can have some very powerful explanatory power. I'm into redundancies as well. For explaining what's happening in our world these days. But the problem with any meta theory that claims to be, the theory of theories is you kind of get in the business of systematizing the mystery of God in the form of humanity, breaking through humanity. And that runs into some problems for me, because what it can do is create a situation where I'm distancing myself from my fellow human and abstracting them and just othering them. So if this turns into an othering exercise, then maybe we can kind of change directions. Anyways, I'm going to start off with, we've gone through 4 tracks of my album so far. Like, track 1 is The Color Beige. That's Survival. Track 2 is Purple, Mythic Magic. Track 3 is Red Blob. That's Egocentrism, Warrior kind of leader. Track 4 is Blue Blobs, and that is Traditional Consciousness. That is the sacrifice self for the greater good. And now we're on to track number 5. And I'm not going to say what this is. You're just going to have to experience it with me. So I'm going to bring track 5 to this stage. Here we go, track 5. I will mute myself, and let's just All right. Track 5. Who wants to come in? Talk about it. Talk about how meritocracy is treating you these days. Or anything else that's on your mind or your heart. I dropped a StreamYard link in there. Or if you have a poem, a story, interpretive dance, a party trick, that is all welcome here as well. But I'm going to need you to be here with me for this show to go on. Okay? One interesting fun fact about this album is I got to get ready for my own stream. TLC is starting to stack. It is a good thing. This is the happy problems of communities that grow. So I look forward to tuning into yours later on, Paul. Thanks for dropping by for a couple minutes. So one fun fact about this album is as the songs progress, the timbre of the piano becomes sharper. So in the first couple of songs, the timbre of the piano is this really warm kind of, I don't know, it's almost a muted sound. And then each song just adds, I crank the timbre up, so it has more of a treble sound. That mutedness dissipates, and it's almost a little jarring at points. I can't remember if I actually back off that later in the evolution, if you will, of these value systems, value energies swirling around. All right. Someone's got to join me. Ethan, you can come in here. Otherwise, I just have to freestyle. And I don't know what to do about that. I was listening in on Christian Baxter's little premiere. So I don't think it was live, but it was kind of experienced live as a premiere, and was really enjoying that conversation. And I don't know if I have any hot takes yet, but I'd love to pick up on the thread. Okay, well, here's the thing. Let's see if I have any messages from folks. Oh, here we go. Ethan.
What's up, Rigel? I brought my mother with me.
Wonderful. Hey, Marcy. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks. How are you, Rigel?
Really good. Really good. Oh, finally, you spared me from being out here on the like floating in the middle of the ocean of the internet by myself.
Usually Sherry beats me, but not this morning, I guess.
I know. Well, how are you doing today? Anything kind of bubbling up for you, either from this or from any other conversations that have been happening out there?
You know, it's funny because I saw you in the chat room earlier this morning over on Christian Baxter's feed, and I had a conversation with those guys. It must have been Tuesday morning. And then I was listening to your song, and I'm going, there's a zeitgeist here. There's something floating around. I'm excited for the next song now, which is always what happens. But I have all kinds of wonders about, like, it feels like we're in an age where things are ending, and then like there's a part of me that's excited, but there's also a part of me that goes like, when things collapse, people get hurt, and there's danger. And so I feel very much like excited for something new, but also like worried and how can I be a part of a new thing, but also how can I be like a support system for the areas of society or the areas of my little community which might be collapsing, and there might be people like standing underneath something that's collapsing and not seeing it. That's kind of
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely picking up on that myself. And my instinct is always to, it makes me think of actually, my instinct is to bring my center of gravity over my feet. And I'm a ex swing dance addict, so I have spent a lot of time on the dance floor. And one of the things that like you have to do on a fast song, as songs speed up, if you're making these big movements, you're just going to run out of breath, and the communication between your partner gets really flimsy, and everything just kind of flies apart. But if I make all of my movements small, so like there's these basic steps basically in West Coast or East Coast or Lindy Hop. These are the different dance forms. There's these basic steps, and if you keep your center of gravity just right over your feet, then you can dance to really fast music, and you're not going to get like spun out. And it kind of makes me wonder if there's going to be an organic. I mean, I think it's a very human thing to just retreat to the most stable point. And I wonder what that most stable point is going to be. And actually, when I was listening to Christian Baxter's premiere with y'all just a little bit ago, he made this interesting comment about how, and I don't know if I actually heard it right, so you can maybe correct me, but I think he was talking about their church plant and how he's like, I could buy printers and like have an office and a secretary and all this stuff, but we decided not to do that. I don't ever want to put up 150 chairs again on a weekend. I don't know if I heard that right or if I just heard what I wanted to hear. But it made me think of an Orthodox church service, and particularly our iteration of that. Like we don't have chairs. We just sit on the floor for 6 to 10 minutes during the homily, and the rest of it is just standing. We don't have an office. We don't have all of these kind of modern administrative, like, I don't know what it is, but it's this like upkeep. It's almost like a bureaucracy that you have to keep up with just to keep the like lights on. And I'm wondering if there is going to be kind of a retreat to a more minimalist, possibly more beautiful way of doing church.
Yeah.
I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah. I guess I hear like the grief from things that end, and then moving to something that's simple and meaningful instead of so fluffy and produced.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like there's kind of a childlike accessibility that I am really attracted to. And I don't know, it's something about in I don't know, Marcy, how familiar you are with this whole orthodoxy thing, but we have a type of music called Byzantine chant, and I think there's other types of chant, but we use Byzantine chant where you have someone singing an eson, which is this drone note. It's basically like bagpipes. Like you have one pipe in the bag is just holding a single note, and then on top of that, someone sings a melody. And what's cool about this is you can participate, anyone can participate in this. Anyone can sing the drone note. And, you know, it's one level up to actually sing the melody or improvise the melody. A lot of this is semi-improvised. But there's something so kind of haunting and accessible that that feels like this recentering, this bringing my weight back over my center of gravity. And I wonder if that might be, I don't know, like an inroad for people to kind of find their center of balance again in this kind of very destabilizing time we're in. I mean, I say destabilizing. My life isn't really that destabilized. You know, I live like this pretty, you know, privileged, like fluffy life, you know, in my earth dome that I had time to build in my backyard. You know, not everyone, I mean, I'm not like rich, but I'm like, feel like I'm very wealthy compared to, you know, people who are working multiple jobs and just trying to like keep their head above water.
Yeah, it reminds me of yoga almost, where it's like you go into like a stretching pose and you stretch out and then coming back to the center of balance. But I haven't done yoga much recently. But I remember when I started yoga, it was like just to hold a downward dog was hard. And then eventually that becomes like a stable posture. And that was always interesting. It becomes a resting pose because it's like something that is initially difficult. You're able to find rest in that with practice. And I even think about that with churches. There is, I think, numerous different church traditions. There's a difficulty to even just going through the doors for the first time. And it's like, you know, if you grew up Protestant and you go to an Orthodox, you're like, what in the world is happening? Or if you grew up Orthodox, because I've seen, it's interesting, there's a couple writers on Substack I've seen who grew up Orthodox and are deconstructing out of Orthodoxy. I went, okay, so it's affecting all of the, I'd only ever read Protestant and Catholic deconstruction stories. So it's interesting reading some Orthodox deconstruction stories because I had only read Orthodox conversion stories. I think for me, I'm interested in learning more about Orthodoxy and bringing some of those treasures into my just like inherited evangelical tradition. Because I think that's some of the beauty is to like learn the best from the best, to bring some Catholic practices into my evangelical tradition, to try and make evangelicalism more beautiful and more in line with God's will. And I do think I think people are burning out on mega church, probably mega anything really. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I had this wild thought as I was listening to the Christian Baxter chat that, you know, it's something that came up in our Randos conversation that I had with him back in November last year. He had me on and, you know, interviewed me. And something that kind of came up is, you know, his own journey, kind of deconstruction, then coming back, but wanting to bring some more like liturgical things back with him and finding, you know, the oldest building in his hometown and using that as, you know, it happens to be available for meeting and using that as the springboard for this next church plant that he's doing differently, obviously. And one of the things that I contributed to that was this problem I think Orthodoxy will be facing if people keep converting like crazy, which is we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the buildings, we don't have the like priests. And I think one of the problems with that is, you know, maybe we end up fast tracking some people and then we don't have the infrastructure for oversight, and then things get really weird, and then maybe it implodes or something. I mean, I don't know how the Holy Spirit is going to be moving through all of this, and don't want to like predict anything there. But it makes me wonder. Paul talks about. I think Paul talks about the adaptability of Protestantism and how they're just so quick to pick up on a trend and pivot and do what needs to happen to keep the doors open. And whether it's build a church out of metal in a parking lot and just get people in the door, or, change the worship style, add more songs that are interesting, turn it into a rock concert, turn it into kind of a contemplative, candlelit service. So it can pivot much easier. And I just wonder, I wonder if I would have become Orthodox if there were these Protestant churches who kind of were able to take on some of these more liturgical qualities. And so here was my thought, and I'm just going to throw this out there. My thought was, what if in this movement to kind of traditional practices that's happening in Orthodoxy and Catholicism, what if Protestants start to just become more liturgical? They just start to look more liturgical. Rome, okay, we're bringing Rome in. Roman Catholicism unifies all Christians everywhere. I think that they have the infrastructure and that top-down kind of hierarchy. They would have to let go of the papal supremacy thing for Orthodox to even consider that. But I think we kind of need Rome in a sense as well to be a unifying force. So if they can thread that needle, and then if Orthodoxy can enter the modern world, okay, this is the orange blobs, right? Which it has resisted to the teeth. I mean, I think that's why so many people are attracted to Orthodoxy, is because it has done such a good job kind of resisting modernity. But I think we're going to get stuck if we just live in this kind of nostalgic golden age that, doesn't really exist anymore. And so what if Orthodoxy entered the modern world and then sanctified it, and while preserving its kind of mystical theology and this its ability to keep its weight over its feet. I think there are some really exciting prospects there, but that's maybe some wishful thinking.
What does that bring up for you?
Well, I guess thinking how people from all faith traditions seem to be wanting something different, the opposite maybe. And the Apostle Paul having stressed unity over and over and over, and we have not done that. That coming home, recentering over your feet. We do have to find a way. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, it's going to take, I think, a specific humility for each. I don't know. I have Protestantism, Orthodoxy, and Catholicism as these three kind of big Christian systems. I'm probably way overgeneralizing, but I think there's both gifts and kind of disasters or pathologies that each of us bring to the table. And I think it will take everyone demonstrating in epistemic humility, in being able to identify their pathologies while also holding on to the gifts and not just throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of my bugbears is like growing up Protestant. There's a sense where like, okay, there was the Catholics and the Protestants break off of that. But one of the things that I think it's fair to say happened was like when Protestants did that, they broke fully away from like Judaism and have like no sense of like the deep roots. And so, I mean, I've just been so interested into like to learn about Judaism and how that functions. Because I mean, that's like you're talking old, like that's old. Um, and Catholics and Orthodox, like y'all have deep roots because there's this sort of unbrokenness in a sense. I mean, there's an unbrokenness. And in so many ways, Judaism is kind of an old center. And for myself, it's so easy to think about Protestants as like, well, God is doing a new thing. It's like, well, God's always been doing things, and even your tracks. I mean, that's part of what your album's all about is God has been doing one thing, and these things have been changing and shifting across millennia.
Yeah. Marcy, were you going to say something?
That, I mean, God is still doing the same thing. And we find different modes, I guess, for that. But
Yeah. I mean, I certainly like we're all meeting God where we're at, and God is meeting us where we're at, you know? I mean, that's part of my story is I met God in a car ride coming back from a real estate motivational seminar in Dallas, you know.
and he was there.
And he was there, you know. And I get very judgy around other people who have that similar experience. But I have to remember that, like, we all start somewhere, you know?
Oh wait, what is that story though? You didn't share the story. I've never heard that story.
Oh, you haven't heard the story? Okay, this is on the randos conversation, but I'll share a little bit here. So this was in 2000, year 2000, living in Austin, Texas. I had just moved here with my dad from the West Coast, Port Townsend, Washington. We moved here in a 27-foot trailer and stayed right in downtown Austin. There's this trailer park, is freaking awesome. I got into real estate at the ripe age of 18, and and you know, you go to motivational seminars when you are in real estate and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I did not grow up in any sort of Christian like context. I didn't even really know people went to church on Sundays until I moved to Texas. And then like, if you're not in church on Sunday, you ain't American. Okay? And so I think I had actually started reading Mere Christianity because it was like lying on someone's bedside table, and I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And that's the C.S. Lewis kind of intro book, and had some really interesting points. But anyways, I went up to this motivational seminar, and they were talking about like this idea of becoming a type of person who gives just without this calculated expectation of having something brought back to you in turn, but just like trusting that God will provide, and just kind of just running your business as if you are just giving. And this was very, this was like really a new concept for me. And I happened to be driving up there with a couple of vineyard Christians. I don't know if you've run across, it's like a,
The charismatic.
yeah, I think it's charismatic a little bit, evangelical, charismatic. I couldn't tell, the difference. But I happened to go up with them, and man, they saw the opportunity. They're like, "Oh, we're going to tell Rigel about Jesus," and this is after the seminar. My heart has already kind of been tilled a little, and we're driving back, probably 11:30 through Waco on I-35, and they're telling me about Jesus. They kind of get to this point where they're just asking me if I want to have Jesus in my life. And I remember looking down at my knees. I was in the front seat. I was looking down at my hands, gripping my knees, like I was white knuckling my knees. And I was just like kind of frozen there. And then I felt this presence just like lower down into the car. I'm like a hippie atheist, okay? I feel this like presence lower down to the car, and like kind of a warm weight, something, I don't know. And I look back at the guy behind me and I'm like, do you feel that? And I look over the guy next to me and I'm like, do you feel that? And they're like, yeah, like something's going on here. And so I just took that as a sign, and I said the prayer, and we got back home and they gave me a Bible and said, you need to start going to church, find a place to go to church. And they invited me to their church, but I also went like church shopping, which was, 2 services a Sunday, maybe, some Wednesday services. And in Austin,
You
Texas.
went hard.
I went hard, yeah. And I ended up at a Baptist church in Austin that had a really robust singles department with, really fun, like there's always activities, and it was lovely. Like it was exactly what I needed at that time in my life. I was really blessed to just have this group of like built-in friends that are doing family-friendly activities every night of the week. And and they, of course, they found out that I was a musician, and within a month I was leading worship for this community of like mid-20s to mid-40s singles. And that was a learning experience. It was really fun. It was a lot of fun. We did mission trips together. Did like street evangelism. Really embarrassing to look back at videos of me doing that.
I'm grateful that I don't think there's videos of me doing that exist. I'm glad for that one.
Yeah, there's some embarrassing ones out there that I cringe. But you know what? Cringing is good that's like medicine in some senses. So that's kind of the overview. But I ended up, I was going there for probably few years, 3 years or so, super hyper involved, had like kind of a close-knit set of friends, and then started like questioning things. I don't really culturally fit in like the Southern Baptist world. I have a very like hippie upbringing. Even though I have all this like conservative streak too. I'm a weird jumble of a lot of things. I contain multitudes. But I ended up, I ended up attending some of these emergent churches. Do you remember the emergent movement? The Rob Bell?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was deep in there.
Yeah, that's where you learned about like the spiral dynamic stuff, right? Was through Rob Bell and
Yeah, and then I almost didn't get hired at the mega church which my parents were attending, and I had grown up in, because they heard that I had gone to a Rob Bell conference. So then I went through my interview process, and because I was like on like a preaching team of a small emergent church, and the pastor was like, Ethan, I'm never gonna be able to pay you. Like they came and found you. Like take the opportunity. Like it's a good door to walk through. And I was thinking about spiral dynamics of like I could talk to anybody, and I could encourage someone in red to go to blue. I could encourage someone from blue to go to orange. Like this is a great opportunity. Like I'm gonna be able to use like gifts and talents. Like this would be great. But then I had to go through like kind of I had to meet with the executive board after I had done like the normal interview process, and I was like, what is going on? Like I thought we were good. And then it was like a question and answer of like, what do you think about this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this? Because I had, they had to vet me, and I snuck through.
interesting. Wow. Yeah, I didn't really realize he was such a scandal. But I think I had already kind of backed out of my Baptist experience by the time he was really coming on the scene.
Well, all of his videos were in youth groups. So like every youth group was using Numa videos.
Yeah.
And then it became this like, quote unquote scandal. And then it was like, oh, we have to like rechange all of our youth group curriculum, because every church in America, not every, but quite a few had Numa as part of the curriculum. And they were like, oh no, we got to like make sure that we signal to our tribe accurately and, declare the right enemy and scapegoat and all that.
Wow. Yeah.
Cancel culture right there.
Yeah. The cancel culture's everywhere. So it's interesting because that emergent experience was the setup for becoming Orthodox, because it was totally deconstructive. I mean, that's what it does, is it like deconstructs, and then Rob Bell is quoting, he's like introducing theology, like kind of this idea that, God is everywhere, even in hell, which is very, very difficult for a Baptist ears to hear. But that's kind of like Orthodox theology. And I was I was primed a little bit and deconstructed a little bit, and ended up going to this silent Catholic monastery in Texas. And at this time, I hadn't really been introduced officially to Orthodoxy. I just knew about Catholicism, which as a Baptist, Catholics aren't Christian. And so there's that.
There's that.
But there was some radio programs that kind of burst onto the scene and convinced me that there's a little bit more nuance to it. And so I started like looking into Catholicism a bit, went to this silent monastery called Leib Shemaya in South Texas. And that is when I'll just tell you what happened here. I was like eating in silence with my buddy and some nuns and some other visitors. And this nun like whisper screamed across the table to us. This is like eating and talking is what I do. This is my A game. food, conversation. Like that's where I get people to like me. And, you know, it's fun, it tastes good, feels good. But we're just clinking in silence, which is its own type of hell. And this nun is like, hey, are y'all priests? And I am like, no, we're Protestants. I didn't even really know what a priest was, honestly. And she's like, I see you're reading some Thomas Merton. Come follow me. And she takes us up to, I was reading, I think, contemplative prayer. And she takes us up to the library and gives me the book Way of the Pilgrim, and my friend the book Philokalia, which is this collection of writings from mystics and monks, basically, on how to pray without ceasing, basically. Anyways, Way of the Pilgrim is just about this like wandering homeless guy, essentially, who is trying to figure out what it means to pray without ceasing. And, you know, it's his journey through the wilderness in Russia and through towns, and he figures it out. But he finds what's called the Jesus prayer in that process, which is this, they call it hesychastic prayer, prayer of the heart. It's also called like silent prayer. And this was the first time I was introduced to a type of prayer that wasn't just asking God for things or to like make my life better somehow. And it was prayer that was just about like direct union, really. And that was like a big turning point for me, because it's kind of exhausting to be trapped in this like, what's God's will for my life conversation, which like never ends in those singles group circles. And let's see, what else happened? I think that was actually after. Was that before or after? Now I can't remember. I got to go back and look at my chronology. But I went to visit a friend in California who was going to seminary out there. He was part of this kind of emergent scene. He was a pastor that was part of like a mega church, and then he had this like deconstructing, falling out, and was kind of learning the way of the emergent, and he was going out to, I guess he was taking his seminary courses through, what's the Fuller Seminary, but it was like an extension in Northern California. And his Greek New Testament and Hebrew professor was an Orthodox priest, and he described him as Santa Claus in real life. And I was like, I got to come out and meet this guy. So I flew out, hung out with him. We decided to go on a field trip and visit an Orthodox church, which was really a strange experience, but it was also really fascinating how Christ-centered it was. And as a Baptist, like that's very important, you know. And he would even stop the service. It was in one of these like converted mall spaces, and it was a really small little mission. And I think the altar was actually like out in the middle of the like area. I mean, it was everything was just like right out in the open. And he would stop the service and explain to me everything that was going on, like at different times in the service, which was really fascinating to have a priest do that. And then, then this is what happened. Then on the plane ride back to Austin, I was sitting in the airplane reading a book on introducing Orthodoxy, and I got to the part where I knew there was a split in 1054 between the East and the West, and coming down the aisle is a guy wearing a black cassock and a white collar, and I'm like, Catholic priest, gonna lay that book right over and just make sure he doesn't see it. He comes and sits down right next to me, and I'm like, are you a Catholic priest? And he says, no, I'm a Greek Orthodox priest. And so he got an earful from me, and I just pelted him with all these questions about Mary and like the Pope, like, did you do that? And icons, which I had a big problem with at the time. And he just answered everything to a point where I was like, okay, I think I need to either start my own church or become Orthodox. And so I'm still, I think, wrestling with that, but I decided to become Orthodox. And that was in 2006, I think.
20 years.
Yeah.
So, can I ask you to like walk me through a service?
Oh, yeah. So, Orthodox service, you typically, depending on when you walk in, it will look a little bit different. But it doesn't, kind of intentionally, it doesn't really have a starting point. It's this like, there's a pre-service service that starts, at our church, it starts at like 8 a.m., and then the main service starts at 10. The Divine Liturgy starts at 10. But there's a service leading up to it called Orthros, which is just very contemplative. There's a lot of psalms that are read and chanted. And, you'll hear this eson, this like bagpipe-like drone note where people are singing that, and then there are people singing the melody of some hymn on top of that. Oftentimes it's just psalms and some prayers, kind of written down prayers. And so it's very contemplative, very quiet. There's not a lot of movement happening. And then at 10-ish, there's no hard start time. Like everything, it's the Divine Liturgy. It just kind of bleeds into Divine Liturgy. And that's one thing about the Orthodox service is there's not typically a point where someone will stop everything and look at you and talk. The priest is facing the altar. Everyone's facing the altar. And it's just this like river of song that you jump into. So that there's not usually dead air until the very last prayer. So in Orthodoxy, we don't typically have organs or instruments. It's all a cappella. And, in I can't speak for other parishes because I've mainly only been to our parish. I've visited a few other parishes here and there, but ours is very, participatory. There's, you sing things once and then you sing it 2 more times, one for each person of the Trinity. So, you can see how like repetitive things get, which is good for learning and participating. If you don't get it the first 2 times, you might get it the 3rd time. And then, so there's lots of moments of joining in and singing. People are lighting candles, and there's, incense. The priest has a censer, and there's moments in the service where people kind of like move together. Like when in our service, when the gospel is read, imagine this big room where everyone's standing. There's no pews anywhere. There's chairs around the perimeter, but just these like clumps of people, where you have like families bleeding into families. You don't know what kids really belong to what adults because the kids are in the service with you, and a lot of them are just like playing on the floor. Bigger kids might be standing. Bigger kids might also be playing on the floor. You know, it's kind of a chaotic, glorious chaos is what I call it. And then there are these moments where like the gospel is read and everyone gets up and kind of moves up close to the gospel. So it's this kind of like breathing in. And then when the gospel's done, everyone kind of like returns back out. And there's these moments of kind of flow where everyone's moving together within this big room, which you couldn't do if you had pews. And then there's we serve the Eucharist, and we serve it using a spoon, and everyone takes the Eucharist in their mouth, like biting down on a spoon. It's very pre-modern, okay? Very pre-modern. And then, we mystically bring heaven to earth in that moment. And then at the end, we, the final prayers are prayed, and we have what's called fellowship hour afterwards, where everyone sticks around, and we have these fellowship teams that provide food for everyone. So we're eating usually, homemade food, and sticking around for sometimes hours afterwards, just hanging out, talking, kids playing with each other. We have a little playground and some shade. And anyways, I feel like I've really been saying a lot, and maybe not saying a lot, but using a lot of words. Does that give you a smattering of what it's like?
Yeah, that's good. So do all of the pieces come from the platform, or do people start songs?
Yeah. Oh, good question. So, okay. So picture, a normal church has a platform, right? Like a stage, right? In our church, the platform is like 6 inches high, and instead of a stage, you have like what's called an iconostas, and you have all these icons on this wall that creates this kind of half-hidden, half-open room that has multiple doors. And so you have priests and deacons kind of coming in and out. Hey, Sherry! I'm explaining it. I'm so glad you're here. Marcy, Ethan's mom, was just asking what an Orthodox service looks like, and I'm doing my best to give a little smattering. Hey, Sam, good to see you out there. But because we don't have like a typical stage where you have like the choir, like I'm remembering my Baptist days, you have like the podium for the preacher,
Maybe
and that's just front and
choir,
center.
instruments,
Yeah, choir, instruments, all that stuff up there. The preaching is is not the main part of the service. It's like I can go for the preaching or not, honestly. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's like, disagree.
just longer.
Yeah, but what oftentimes, and different parishes do it differently, but oftentimes you'll have like a choir on one side and a chanting stand on the other side. So they're up front typically, but they're kind of like facing each other, but we're all kind of facing the altar. So that there's no one that's typically facing you except during certain moments in a service when the gospel is read or different kind of blessings are happening. But for the most part, everything is facing the altar, and all you're looking at is icons and the priests and the altar servers, and we have girls who are, they prepare the bread and the offerings of, I think, like the donations and stuff. So you're seeing both girls and boys kind of do these different activities where, I mean, it looks like this cool kind of organic dance that's happening. So that's my.
Very
Any
cool.
more questions?
That's good. I like that. I've always thought it'd be cool to have church like in the round with
Yeah.
your altar in the middle.
Yeah. You know, and I think
But I like the Orthodox.
I think there is actually that is in our history. I think that's the way that they used to do it traditionally, and I think maybe they even do in some places. I don't know. Ethan, do you know?
Well, I don't know, but I know we don't build buildings like that anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like there's lots of natural spaces where you could have sort of that kind of in the round amphitheater. But like nowadays we only have amphitheaters for like mega scale
Right.
concerts, etc. The thing I was thinking about most, and it was interesting to hear all of that because I don't know that much about Orthodox. I mean, I know more than my mom, but not much more.
Yeah.
Was you used the word organic numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep thinking about how much we have leaned on machines. And like I'm reading a book, Metaphors We Live By, which basically argues that like the brain runs on metaphors. That's the way the brain understands the world.
Yeah.
And he keeps talking about how like, well, just machine metaphors. And so we even talk, I mean, we talk like we are machines. And the Bible's full of like organic metaphors. And so it's interesting to hear you describe, I mean, maybe institution. I know it's kind of a dirty word. I don't know what a better word than institution,
Sure.
but some group of humans, and also more than just humans, because there's objects and there's a building, operating as an organism rather than operating as a machine.
Yeah.
And we need more of that wherever it comes from. If it's Orthodox or Protestant or Catholicism, like we need more organic, living, growing thing.
See it flow like a dance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the metaphor that first pops to mind is like image. Like this whole service is kind of a metaphor for what's happening inside every person and what's happening inside the cosmos. It's like this fractal, ultimate participatory process. But what I think one of the things that drew me to Orthodoxy in the beginning is I was going through this. I was kind of getting back in touch with the land. I was reading a lot of Wendell Berry. I was reading a lot of like agrarian type Christian authors, and I was appreciating the organicness to how community is built and how trust is built, and how like if you're just part of a mega church where you're anonymous, you're not really known, and everyone else is not really known, then there's some spark that is missing. It becomes just more of a performance that I'm kind of consuming. But when I'm known and when I'm knowing and being known, it creates some risk, because it's not, you can't just like back out of that as easily. But also like this incredible warmth. And one of the things about Orthodoxy is you're not supposed to have, like, a priest is supposed to know the name of every person that he serves the Eucharist to, which means that most parishes aren't supposed to get like larger than a certain size. So it kind of organically keeps this like organismic quality. There's like loopholes and ways around that, but that's, I think, one of the things that spoke to me early on. Sherry, do you have anything to contribute, add, sing?
Well, unfortunately, I missed most of the conversation. I'm going to definitely have to go back and give it a listen. I've been kind of deliberately being in the woods of late, so I haven't been able to keep up with anything that's going on in the corner. But I really didn't want to miss this, Rigel, and I opened up my iPad. I was going to clean up the kitchen, and I went, "Oh my God!" How, because I had it in my head this morning, and then stuff happened. And anyways, so I thought I just have to show my face. But on the last bit that you were talking about the organicness, Martin Shaw asked me in the conversation I had with him. He said, "Oh, really? You're an Orthodox Christian? Oh, that's interesting, because you're kind of a woman of the wilds, and I'm just really curious, like." What do you look at this church and you see all these bearded men in black. What's drawing you in there? And I said to him, that's not what I saw. If I am honest, when I look into a Protestant church, it looks like a man decorated it. And when I look into an Orthodox church, it looks like a woman decorated it. And that is my biggest argument for Orthodoxy, is that, because here's the deal. In Judaism, on the Sabbath, which is what divine liturgy is, it's the Sabbath, okay? You're invited into the Sabbath. The Sabbath is led in by the divine feminine. The woman of the household in Judaism lights the candles and invites the Shekinah, which is the feminine spirit of God, to come in. And that's what dwells within the Sabbath. And so I saw what was happening in the Orthodox Church, and I'm like, this is it. This is the Sabbath. Okay? And that's like encompasses a whole lot of stuff. The other thing that I said to Martin was, I've lived in the divine liturgy for 23 years, walking around on my farm, being a part of an agrarian cycle. Okay. The dome is the sky. When I look up, I see God. Right. And so and I've never really been in an Orthodox church. Like, the church I was baptized in was in a Catholic rec hall. It was a mission, but I've seen pictures. And one of these days I'm going to do my dream vacation and just visit one Orthodox church after another in Romania or something. But I'm like, this is exactly what I've been living in. This is it. It's the forest. It's the sky. It's the agricultural calendar, right? And I get to, and the divine liturgy is, for me, very much in line with the Jewish festivals. The Jewish, like Yosef is half the time missing on the Discord because he's got a holiday. He's got a Jewish holiday and he has to act it out. Think about that. He has to act. Feast of Tabernacles. He's building the Sukkot. He's living in it, right? Like Purim, he's getting drunk. Like, he has to act out all of these liturgical cycles. And that's what you're doing in the Orthodox Church. You're acting, and it's not LARPing. It's embodiment. There's a big difference. And I don't know any other place that can do that without LARPing. Without LARPing.
Amen, Sherry.
Yeah.
Sam.
That gave me chills.
Oh, thank you. Good.
Sam, nice to see
Hello.
you.
Good to see you too. I also, like Sherry, missed the first portion. It's good to meet Ethan, your mom. Is it Marcy?
Marcy.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, good.
Good.
I said hi,
Good.
but I didn't have the mic. Hi.
That's cool. I still heard you. Yeah, I don't have a ton to follow that with. I mean, that was beautiful, Sherry. So thank you. I just wanted to come hang. I could spout off about my own experiences in the Orthodox churches. I've experienced it, but I also just like to enjoy let that sit too. So
Yeah.
I know. Are you going to close it off here soon, Rigel?
I mean, usually kind of at 1 is when things need to wrap up. Do you have something to share, Sherry?
Yeah. This has to go with what we're talking about. So,
Please.
and I hope the gist of my poem kind of comes through, because there's more to it than what meets the eye. But it's called Waking Up Early. My cat wonders, why so early? Quick belly scratch. I heave the duvet off my warm body. Cold air over my limbs, lifting me. The ritual begins. I think I'll find God in these early morning hours. I think he will join me as I shake off the weariness of the night. And I do. A puppy stares through the window, wondering. I wanted to see what she does while she waits. I wanted to be first, but the sun woke her. I think they know him. They who rise with the warm rays and sleep with the silver of starlight. They who breathe in and out without a worry, unburdened. I'm getting emotional. I see it in their eyes. They have no questions. They breathe in and out. I think if I rise early, he will speak to me. I think if I rise early, I will see the stillness of a house broken by revelation. I think if I rise early, there will be something waiting for me.
That's really beautiful.
That was really interesting, Sherry, because I felt two things equally as powerful. Like I felt belief and doubt at once. And it's not often that I feel two things. Usually it's like one thing surfaces and then maybe another thing. This was like it was like a duality was coming up of like, I'm going to get up early and it's going to be there, but it's not there. It's going to be there, but it's not there. It's going to be there, but it's not there. Yeah. Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah. I hate expounding on my poems, but sometimes my below the surface thinking is so subtle that it just gets missed. But the main body, and that's why I got emotional, was a puppy stares through the window wondering. And I think if I rise early, I'm going to meet God. I'm going to do, it's going to be this great thing. I'm going to have feelings. I'm going to prostrate. I'm going to light candles. But I just missed it because he was right there staring in the window at me. In my puppy. Right? And so it's a realization of all my own expectations and the things that I put on God that I think he should do for me. And the fact of the matter is that's what he's doing. It's right out my door. It's right outside. It's in everything I see. It is the liturgy.
Wow.
a couple weeks ago, I had the thought when I was a kid, I didn't want to misbehave because I knew God was watching. When I'm an adult, I realize I'm watching, so I don't want to misbehave.
Yeah.
The eyes of God are through his creatures, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Sam. It's gorgeous. Yeah. That's like Meister Eckhart says, the eye with which you see God is the eye with which God sees you.
Yeah. I love that that last line in the poem. I think there will be something waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that that is so visceral to what, I don't know, I feel like what beauty
Mm-hmm.
awakens. Like there is an incompleteness to beauty that's like pulling me into something. Yeah, and that kind of hope that there will be something waiting for me is at a very fundamental level of awareness that I'm
Yeah.
usually not quite aware of.
And if you don't have that hope, you don't encounter anything. Think about that, Rigel. Like you seriously can't encounter something if you don't expect it to be there for you.
Yeah, that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. Which is, and it's interesting to think about that in the context of what you were hovering around Christian Baxter's conversation earlier today.
Just for a second.
Yeah, I saw you in the chat.
Yeah. I'm just like, oh my God, I gotta watch this.
But
it'll be later.
one of the things that came up, and I was in and out, I did not hear the whole thing. But one thing I heard them talk about was like how the Puritan culture doesn't really know what to do with like good feelings. Doesn't know what to do with feasting. It's this deferred thing that that's
You
kind of
hide-
like waiting for you in heaven or something.
Yeah. And on earth you hide and do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But it makes me think of like just the cultural power of kind of people systematically being unable to experience their own longing because it's just like cranked down. And that longing, okay, this is going to tie to the Orange Blob song of Modernity, track 5 on the Rigel album. Track 5 of Consciousness, the Orange Blob is bringing into existence this like self-expression, self-mastering. But you have to like know yourself, like know thyself.
Yeah.
And without that, all doors are just shut off to you. All doors of experience. I'm just making shit up.
No,
now.
you're not. No, you're talking to Yeah, what came to my mind is this from Meister Eckhart.
Yeah.
Study the stone. Be yourself. And if what this means is unclear to you, look around at the things of this earth. Study the stone, which always does what it was made to do. It doesn't always fall in the same way, sometimes resting in high places, and other times finding its nest or rest where the earth allows it to lie. But its purpose is to move downward. And in this, the stone loves God in the way that it can, singing the new song, which God gives each creature and thing. And also, you who read this at times wonder what to do and how to be. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Another group I was in was discussing spontaneity as sort of the highest expression. And they meant it in like your ability to be fully yourself. It's like the way that Steph Curry can be fully himself when he drains. He just puts up a 3 and drains it. Like, it's like he's not gotten there through just sort of like in a, like, oh, I'm just being myself. I'm going to do whatever. It's like, no, there was an aesthetic practice, a discipline, a structure that I had to follow, a commitment. But he wasn't even doing it because he's like, you know what, if I do this, I'm going to be the best basketball, 3-shooter in the world. It's that he had a joy of experiencing playing the game. And as you play it over and over, you iterate and get better at being yourself. and you fail and fall and flounder and make mistakes, but you end up becoming this authentic version of yourself that is truly who you are, not sort of the contrived, version. And that's, man, I'm on that journey. I feel like it's so far away, like who I want to be and like where I'm at. Where's my camera? There it is.
Well, Sam, this is why I think the scripture is really clear about who's the judge. It's not us. It's God. Because in reality, the worst judge lives right here. That's the harshest critic, right? And I feel like God and Christ are giving us, a alleviation from that by saying, like, I grew up in a Christian culture that was like, God's going to judge you.
Right.
They took words of comfort and turned them into a threat.
Right.
Right. And but God's saying, no, it's okay. I'm the judge. Right. So stop judging. I'm going to do that. That's my job.
Yeah.
You just be yourself. Be the stone. If you're a stone, fall downwards and glorify God in that way. That's what I made it to be, right? To do that. Yeah.
That's good.
I hope you hear that differently now. That's why I said it.
Yeah. I've had to learn to grow to feel and hear that differently over the years. But it's amazing that it kind of came through, my tradition and a strong scripture, a love of the scriptures, and that was grafted into me. And so, but it's come through sort of that path of going a deeper understanding, a richer understanding of what the scriptures are even saying, instead of this sort of view that's essentially, there's like the Adam after he sins saying, God's going to destroy me. I'm scared. I'm cowering. Like, you can view God like that because that's how you think of him, but like God is always trying to like say like, no, I'm here to love you. I'm here to, like you're saying, like,
yeah, well,
judge
that's
rightly
the
for
Father. That's the Father. And Jesus says,
Yeah.
I have come to reveal the Father. That's not like the man in the sky. That's not like, Zeus. He's coming to reveal God as Father. As Father. And that's why he says, behold, I make all things new. Because now you see them differently, right? Where when the words of comfort, God is the judge, become words of threat. And then you have to repurpose them back to through Christ, which is, what John 10:9 says. It is through me that the sheep go in and out and find pasture. That's metaphor for freedom, right? So when you go through Christ, suddenly you have the freedom to not judge yourself and to let God do it. Right?
Why is it so hard to not judge yourself?
Well, I think Dostoevsky wraps it up quite neatly in the Grand Inquisitor. Just read it. I read it recently again, and I got chills. I was like, yeah, this is us trying to own the system, right? And when Christ comes in, the Grand Inquisitor says to him, "Look, you need to leave, okay? Because you're just too wild, and we can't. We don't have control over the people. We've got everything just working smoothly, like Ethan said earlier, machine, right? And now you come in and you're throwing wrenches into all of our, stuff." Yeah, Jesus says nothing. As usual.
It's too radical. It's too great. It's like too lofty. The accepting kind of deep love of God for us.
Which requires a love of ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
That's why Meister Eckhart says the eyes with which you see God are the eyes with which God sees you. So if you see him as this judge who's going to threaten you,
Yeah.
well, that's who's looking at you.
Yeah. Man, I feel like we could just launch into another 2-hour conversation starting now. Like, I'm like going to tie this back to the Orange Blob song, and but we're just going to have to continue it later. But what a lovely little crew we got here.
Can I quickly share just the image that was coming up from all of that? When you were talking about your interpretation of the Orange Blob, Sam was talking about Steph Curry and monasticism, and the image of like harnessing potential. That phrase came up, and with what Sherry was talking about, and I was thinking about when I harness my dog and we like go outside to the woods, and somebody mentioned like beauty pulling us forward. And as I like harness the dog just wants to like run after like scents, I don't know, like things in the air, and just like experience beauty. And I mean, it really is like beauty is pulling the dog forward. And if I'm harnessed to it, then I'm being pulled and I'm trying to jog, and I can never keep up with the dog, but I keep like, I don't know. I think there's like a part of us. There's a potential in us that we harness, and then you just like hold on to that leash for dear life, and you're like, okay, beauty, I'm here for the ride.
Yeah.
That was what came up to me.
Oh my God, I love that. So good.
Me too.
Oh.
Okay,
Yes.
can I just close it out?
Yes,
One
close it
more
out.
Meister Eckhart. One more.
Close it
Meister
out. One more Meister Eckhart.
Yeah. Give me words that sing, it's called. Teach me, I pray, to see the small, unnoticed things in my life, close to my reach and deeper than my eye alone can teach. Show me with the steady measure of a poet's gaze what it means to seek words that are pleasing and alive, as the dance is to those with tired legs and knees. Give me words that sing against the darkest nowhere hour, ones full of enough silence to be rich in the spin of every now and alive in the tremble of each here.
Love it.
Beautiful.
Right. What a way to close, Sherry. Thank you, Sam, Sherry, Ethan, Marcy.
Yeah.
2 women on this channel at the same time. This is a record. This is good. This is growth.
I keep staying here for a reason. You know?
I know.
Just like, come on. I know you're slow. I know you're scared. I know you're shy. I know you're afraid. I know. Come on. Water's good.
Good. All right. Well, y'all have a lovely weekend.
You too, Rigel.
Yeah, you too, Rigel.
Thanks, Rigel.
Sorry I missed so much of it, but this was great.
Thank you all.
Love
Bye.
you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, and I will end the stream this time.